Good evening, everyone. And I say that with sadness, actually, good evening. And I hope everybody is having a better evening than we've had in the past week or so. And this is Joe Shoup, and this is our special tribute to the man that we all called Mr. Carrot Bars, Dan Boomer Girolmo. And I'm excited to have his friends here tonight to express their relationships, their stories, their feelings towards not just Dan, but the impact that he had on everyone's life. And I'm also excited to we'll have a couple other special guests that are hopefully will be able to get onto the call. And I want to introduce you, for those of you that don't know, Mark Stevens. Mark Stevens, not only my partner, but also Mark is 4 years ago or so, was the fellow who actually coined the phrase Mr. Carrot Bars for Dan Girolmo. I'll let him tell you that story. But I want to welcome all of you here, and thanks for coming aboard and helping us celebrate the unfortunate passing of a great leader in Carrot Bars. So Mark Stevens, over to you.
Thanks, Joe. Good evening, everybody. As Joe said, about 4 years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Dan, didn't know him that well and everything. And then over the years, we got to talk more, and I saw such a great job and leader that he had become and was doing, and so we would talk more often. And I said, Boomer, you know what? I'm going to name you Mr. Carrot Bars because, and I had talked with him with some people that I was bringing into the business. One guy said, I want to talk to this guy that you always talk about, Boomer. So can you make that happen? I said, well, I'll see what I can do about that, and I made that happen. So, after him talking to Boomer, that, believe it or not, helped him make a decision that, well, I'm not going to wait any longer. I'm going to go ahead and get involved. But many of the conversations that Boomer and I had, they turned out to be spiritual. It wasn't necessarily about business. It was just like we just became very fond of each other, like we were brothers. And that's, I told him, I said, look, we're brothers, and I'm naming you Mr. Carrot Bars. I know your name is Boomer, but that's the name I'm giving you. So we laughed, and so he kind of accepted that. So whenever I would introduce him to people, whatever, I say, well, this is Mr. Carrot Bars. So that's how that story, came about. And when I got the news, I mean, I'll be perfectly frank with you, I cried the whole day because it was like losing a brother, and it really hurt, and I really couldn't do anything more that day and everything. And then I finally got to talk to Joe, and so I kind of calmed down a little more, but my day was messed up because I didn't even sleep that night. So and it's like he's with me every day spiritually and everything, but it still hurts because I hear his voice all the time. I hear that laugh. I hear that, I'm just, how he would talk about, I'm just an ex-repo man, I'm a knucklehead or whatever like that and everything. He said that, but really, to me, it was a brilliant type of guy, because when I thought about the interviews that he did with I can't remember the guy's name, Gary or something like that, the news guy, I can't remember his name, but some of you may know who I'm talking about when he went on the TV show.
Gary Franchi.
Yeah, Gary Franchi, right, and everything, and and you could see that he knew this Carrot Bars business backwards and forwards, and just like Lord being one of the senior leaders, knowledge inside and out, and you could go to him and you would call him. I know every time I called him, every time he would call me back, except for I called him on December 25th to wish him happy birthday, and I didn't get a call back. I figured, it's a holiday, he was probably busy with family and everything like that. And then I never heard from him again until I found out that he had passed, and it was just like, well, the holiday just doesn't mean anything much anymore or whatever like that. So that's something. I'm the type of person that when I love you and I'm close to you, it reigns with me a long time. So it's going to take me a long time to get over it. Not that I ever will get over it, because again, he's always here in spirit, and he is Mr. Carrot Bars, and he'll be the only Mr. Carrot Bars to me, because that's the way that I know him. And Joe, I'd like to thank you for the space to be able to to say what I feel about that great man.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I want to make a call out to Janice. And Janice, there is a place on there that you can request to be a speaker. For some reason on my end, it doesn't show until you make the request. So if you can find it on there, go ahead and request that, and I can open that up. That's what it looks like. And we'll just try to do that in the next few minutes. In the meantime, I think, I probably never thought of Dan without thinking of Lloyd and Joe Norman. I always thought of, you can't, the one without the other. And I know that Lloyd is deeply wounded by this, as losing a partner like that, and as a lot of people are. And I know he wanted to express his feelings, his story, and tell you, about the man that, again, we all called Mr. Carrot Bar. So, Lloyd Merrifield, over to you.
Well, thanks, Joe. I mean, I think all of us here who knew Dan, certainly those of us that were very close and have spent a lot of time together over the last few years, were shocked, and the sting and the hurt of that initial discovery of what happened was hard for all of us. And certainly, like Mark says, you kind of have to sit back and let it pass, because time heals all, as we know. And we're now at a place where I'm not sure what the process of is that we all go through, but the pain is less. You certainly remember, and every day for me, whenever anything comes up, it seems to be Dan's face that I'm seeing in the image. And what would Dan be? And he always had a comical thing to say, and he was living life, and he was telling all of us more than once, hey, whatever you do, make sure you have fun at it. And he was certainly somebody who exemplified that for all of us. Anybody who knew him knew that Dan was that man that would give you the shirt off his back and the shoe off his foot and anything else he had if he felt it could help you. And it was never about Dan. It was always about somebody else. But I met Dan almost 6 years ago now, when I first got involved in Carrot Bars, and back then we weren't open in North America, but it was an interesting time, because all of us that were part of this mission kind of banded together, and there was 5 of us on the leadership council back then: Dan, myself, and Joe, and Cheryl Ann, and Jimmy Larson. But Dan was certainly, as we all know, a one-focused man back then, and we were. He called me up, the first person I ever talked to in Carrot Bars, and it was just a random call in the middle of the night and in the evening, and it was Dan on the other side, and he had his hair all pointed in 1,500 different directions, and he had a T-shirt on, and it was just as casual as it can be. And like Dan says, don't let him fool you. The old common sense knucklehead was a disguise that he used to kind of make it easier for everybody else to understand that they could do this. But he was a very sharp man, as we attest to, and there's nobody out there who probably doesn't understand that. But over the years, we spent a lot of time together. I know for about 1.5 years we were doing a webinar together. They call us the Johnny Carson and the Ed McMahon show of Carrot Bars. I think Joe coined that phrase. Dan and I were always saying, which one of us is Johnny and which one of us is Ed? It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot. We went through a lot of trying times. Dan is one of those guys who he's like a dog with a bone. He's not giving it up, and he will find whatever it takes to make something as great as this easier for all of those in his team to do. So we've all lost a great man, and Mr. Carrot Bars, there's nobody there would not agree with that. We meet every week with Corp, and Dan is always there, and he's always cheery, and his opening statement, and I'll hear it for as long as we're on those calls, and it always starts with, Hello and welcome to the day. And you can just hear Dan singing that on the call that always set the tone and made things what they were. So we're all feeling a lot better now after, as I said, a few days of letting it sink in and realizing that nobody other than Dan would not be wanting all of us to charge and remember him in a positive way and not let his passing stop us from doing whatever it is we choose to do. And in fact, I think it's certainly invigorating me and invigorating many others to really get involved here and really do what they want to do. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Joe. Just everybody, we've got a great path to follow, and any memory of Dan is only going to make those of us that are still here smile.
Yeah, thanks, Lloyd. I'm sure Dan's smiling down on the legacy that he left here in Karatbars is unbelievable, really. I don't know that I've ever seen someone leave a company, whether it was leave or pass on, that has left such a legacy like this. I mean, everybody knew Dan is happy, jolly, willing to help, and it was phenomenal, really. It's just... Now, I sent a letter to Janice. Janice, I opened up, or I replied to that and opened that up. Can you hear us? Are you able to open a microphone? Okay, we'll just keep trying. I see that in the room that I have that open, and it's open as a speaker. So somehow we'll have to figure that out. In the meantime, let me. I know someone else wanted to actually talk, and Gary, if you can also send a request, let me just see how I can open that up. I've already opened Janice's line, and it said to make them a speaker, and I did that, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. Anyway, let's. For those of you that do, most of you probably know Robert Lariviere, and Robert is an author, a motivational speaker. He has been in this industry and been in business a long time. He has a very, very large group here in Karatbars and inspires a lot of people with his writings, his books, his teachings. We're excited to have him tomorrow for the next couple of weeks, actually, on the Breakfast Club. But I know Robert wanted to... I've had some talks with him about Dan, about Boomer, and listened to his stories when he met Dan and so on. And I thought it would really be appropriate for Robert to be able to speak his heart and talk about not only the training that Robert has done, but how in line Boomer and Robert were together with understanding this business. So, Robert, it is a pleasure to have you here, and unfortunate on these circumstances. Tomorrow may be a little better, but thanks for being here, and over to you.
Well, when actually you're the one who announced me on the morning that Boomer had passed, well, that day, that was a day that I was shocked. I was shocked because just a few days before, we were communicating, me and Boomer, and he was asking news of how the business was going in Quebec and what was going to be happening and so forth. We just exchanged notes on that, and I was basically the same thing on the 25th. I was basically wishing him, happy birthday, and then I talked with you, and that's where I found out. Now, Boomer was a simple man, was intelligent man, was a guy who knew how to talk to everybody and inspire everybody. And this is a quality that is so rare. And this is why he has this following of so many people, because he had his true desire. He was self-confident. He was convinced, or he was able to convince us, but in words that were so simple that people were caught on. And his laugh was so human, so, wow. First time I met him was in Nashville. And I was surprised. I helped him set up at that time. It was the first time I was meeting him, and how to set up his. He was counting all his money and the projector for the presentation, and there was a band there, and we wanted to have mics connected and what have you. And I pitched in, and I said, man, this guy is a great leader and so simple, so to the fact. And he used to say, well, he's just knucklehead, simple guy, but actually he was so intelligent. You're right. That was the way, is disguised to have everybody go to him and talk with him. You see, I was not on his branch. I'm not under him, but I had the occasion to talk and work with him when he came to the Chanticleer in Quebec, and we did we had an event there, was a freedom, and then in Toronto the same thing. We worked together, and in Miami I was there. We exchanged a lot in Miami, and when we went on the cruise, in the Caribbean cruise, we had time to talk and with his wife Claire and so forth, and exchange. And this is where the bonding and you realize that you have real people. This was a real man, a real person, nothing to hide, only one thing: wanted everybody to succeed. And this is so rare. So when you announced me that day, that was the end. That day I could not, I was paralyzed. I could not, I was shocked. Because time, I believe, is the only asset we actually own. We could have millions of dollars, or lose dollars, or what have you, or houses, or that's nothing. It's the time, and the time that we live is the time that we need to share with people, and this is what Boomer has done in a short time. That basically you would meet somebody. This is the type of person, you only met him for 35 seconds, and he would leave his print on you for the rest of your life. And this is very rare, and this is why I think there's so many people so astonished and shocked and of losing such a great soul. So this is my testimony to this. Basically, I love the man. We were able to exchange notes and emails and what have you, and we talked. But his laugh, always laughing. This is for him. That was his trademark. Happy man, sincere man, man of heart, man of vision, a man that really wanted to protect. He was like mother hen, wanted to protect everybody, make sure everything was okay, and so forth. This is what I have to say about this. And find people like that is so rare, so rare.
I should be unmuted now. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Good. I am still trying to find a way to get Janice in here. It is it apparently, I don't know, it's unlocked, and for some reason she isn't able to speak. Janice sent me an email today thanking us for putting this together, and I asked her if she would like to speak, and she said yes. And unfortunately, Lloyd, are you still there?
I am, yes.
You have Janice's email?
I do. Do you want me to send her the presentation
Send
link?
her your admin link.
Okay.
That would be, and she'll be able to click that on, and if you want to, you could mute yourself and maybe talk to her and walk her through, that, and going, I told her already, Google Chrome to get in there, so I don't know why it's not opening or we can't hear her when she's speaking, but it's unlocked. So, and also Elena asked to speak as well, and that's unlocked as well, so apparently something is wrong with microphone somewhere, but either way, I'll talk a little bit as we wait to see if we can get Janice on here. And Janice is Dan's sister, and she responded today again with a thank you. And I thought it would be appropriate if she felt as though she, could speak tonight. That would be great for her and her family. And I think that as we see on here on the chat board, it says Dan would laugh right now. And if it doesn't work, I'd be out. She wanted to say thank you for loving her sweet brother Dan so very much. And I can't imagine that life was any different in the family than it was outside the family, because Dan was, there was always cheer in his heart. He was always just happy. And I remember we have him on the Breakfast Club to teach, and just days that we'll all remember. We'll remember the relationship that we had. We'll remember the times we had, the educational stuff, and the direction he really put this company in. He really took the bull by the horns. And I think most of all, people knew who Dan was with it. I mean, he's in every chat room. He's talking to the people all the time, and getting his voicemail filled up by hundreds of emails and phone calls and voicemails. But it's truly something this company is going to miss. We're all going to miss that smile, as you said. We're going to miss the smile on his face, the smile in his heart, the laughing, and the cheering on. So hopefully I saw a few things today from Nietzsche. I saw a few quotes, from Lloyd and Joe Norman, and I saw that, people were talking about, how precious it was, and that, well, we just have to keep our focus. If we remember one thing is, and I think a few of them said, do it for Boomer if you're not going to do it for yourself. And I think it's a time to reflect not only on loss, but on what Dan brought to this company and to your life. For those of you that he touched your heart. If you never met him, you probably saw his teachings and the enthusiasm that he had. It I remember doing a eulogy for a brother-in-law of mine, and I said that when I got on that podium, it was not about this sadness today. Yes, we're all sad, and yes, life happens this way, but what we need to do is celebrate the life of the lost one, and we need to celebrate Dan's life. And I think that's what Dan would want it. He would have wanted a celebration. And I know that it takes a while to get over these kinds of hurts. Loss is just not a fun thing. It's one of the two constants in life, which is loss and change. And this happens to be two of them. One is we lose Dan, and two, we have a change. Whether you make that for a good change for yourself and use that as an inspiration to, Lloyd said to me today, Joe, it can happen at any time. We've all lost people suddenly. And certainly we lost Dan suddenly. It was just out of the blue. And so how did we make out, Lloyd?
I sent it off to her. Janice, it's in your Facebook page. I didn't have your email. I thought I did, but I put it in your Facebook.
We can go back and forth. If she sees that there, she can go ahead and I could probably send it off as well if I go back in there and see if she can get that. But if she sees it in Facebook, she should be able to get that. But
hey, Joe, while you do that, let me share something that happened today. And you remember we talked about, I guess 3:30 or 4 o'clock today when I was out making calls.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Well, I was in this office and I was talking to a financial guy about carrot bars, and while I just walked in on this guy, I made cold calls. I enjoy doing that. And immediately he pulled up carrot bars. I didn't know he was going to do that, but he went right to his computer. We were sitting by his computer, and he pulled up carrot bars, and the first face that he saw was Dan Boomer Girolmo. And I said, by the way, before you start, that is Mr. Carrot Bars. And we just lost him. We lost a great friend, a leader, and if you had met him, you would have loved him, and you would have, it's like life changing, because he was like bigger than life as far as I was concerned. And the guy said, oh, you have those type of people? I said, those are the type of people that we have with this company. And he was one of the senior leaders in this company, and we just lost him. And but I just wanted to tell you that, because I wish you had the pleasure of meeting him while he was here. So again, I look at it, he's always with us, and it's like, not that I didn't have it before, but it's like I want to do even more now, like in his honor, because I will say this: I have made more calls in the new year that I made for a while, as far as going out and make the calls, the type of calls that I like to make. And I was telling one of my other associates, I said, now we have to definitely build this company even more, because that's what Dan would have wanted. And I said, that'll be my way of honoring him with that. And Lord, I'm quite sure you're familiar with this, with that 100-page sheet that he has, that he made up. I carry that with me now, and I marked off 5 of them today. So that's how I'm going to honor him, by doing that and sharing it with a lot of people. Hopefully they get involved and do it that way, and it'll be in his honor. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. Well, here's what we're going to do. I see Janice's note in there, and I've invited her to the Breakfast Club tomorrow, and which will also be recorded. This will be recorded tonight as well. If you read what Janice has put in there, I will instruct her tomorrow. It was a little late today to speak with her to get this organized for her to get this link, but tomorrow we will give her her own private link for this and have her on the Breakfast Club tomorrow morning, which again will be recorded. So you might want to pass that around. We'll have a discussion with Janice and let her share her stories of life being and growing up with Dan, and again, the sorrow that this brings to our lives is, it's just hard to comprehend. Honestly, it makes you think of a lot of loss in your life and what has taken place and how precious life really is. So I don't know if Robert or Lloyd, you want to say some last words here. We'll close this with, I want to make a statement before we do go. I want to tell you a quick little story, but any one of the three of you or all of you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, I think I just want to close with saying that we've lost a dear friend and somebody who would want all of us to do nothing more than to continue in his legacy and keep pushing forward. I mean, I don't think there's anybody here that's not feeling sadness around the fact that he's not here, and it kind of reminds all of us that, we could be here today and joining Dan tomorrow, or we could be here for the next 40 years. So either way, live your day like it's the last, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this, Joe and Lloyd and Robert. The scripture tells me that weeping endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And I think of that day. I weep pretty much all day and night, but now I have that joy because I think about that laugh just stays within my head and my heart, and it just makes you laugh, and it gives you joy, So like I said, I've had my cry, and now I'm having my joy. And like you said, Lloyd, just enjoy it. We had him for a time, but in spirit we still have him, and we can just remember that laugh. And we still have the videos of him teaching and things like that we can also enjoy. So those of you that haven't seen him, go look at him. Not only will you get to know the man, but you get to enjoy the man as well, and plus you'll get knowledge. So that would be, and I'm, like I said, I have joy now when I think about him, So joy and pain kind of go together every now and then, but now it's full of joy. So again, Joe, thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. You've always been a big part of it. Robert, you want to say a last word here, and then I'm going to close.
Yeah, well, I believe that he opened the road. He gave us the attitude. He gave us the vision, and I think it's for us to roll up our sleeves and get to work and basically fill up the mission. Why not? This is what I see. This is what I feel, and that's why I said I think the most important asset we have is time. And every morning when I get up, I'm always happy at my age that wow, a new day. Well, it's more convincing and basically exactly as this, just to remember to laugh and the attitude of Boomer. It makes you just happy, and let's get to work and let's get this thing done. Okay, that's enough for me tonight. So I'll be with you tomorrow on.
Yep. So for those of you that hear, Janice will be with us tomorrow along with Robert at the Breakfast Club. If you don't have that notice, you just go to thebreakfastclub.ws, register, and you'll be there. Let me just close with this.
Okay.
A few years ago, as people close to me knows, I lost my brother in a tragic accident, and just suddenly, just as Dan. And at that time, I wrote a psalm. sometimes the best time to write those things is when you're totally emotional about it. And I've written a number of songs over the years, which I will not bore you with singing. But I wrote this song, and as this song reminded me when I heard that Dan had passed, it came to mind the song. And it was at some point, maybe you'll hear it. It's being recorded, but I'm going to give you the lines of the chorus. I'll just say them to you, and I think you'll relate to this. And as the song went on in the beginning, the verses basically start with, I used to know a man, and that's why I wrote this song. And then it goes on, and it goes on a couple verses. But the chorus says, he used to tell me that he loved me, and he said, you're my brother and my friend. And it's so sad that he left us, but we'll never know the likes of him again. And that's how I feel. We're probably not going to know the likes of Dan again. It's going to be a long time before that comes about. I've been in this industry 20 years. I don't know of any time I've ever been on calls that a person was always upbeat, always happy, smiling, laughing, chuckling, teaching. So it's so sad that he left us, and we'll never know the likes of him again. Let's move on and work hard and follow the example that Dan set for us. And Janice, we are so sorry for your family's loss, and we will see you tomorrow. I'm going to give you a call. We're going to get you scheduled on there for those of you to come and hear Janice speak tomorrow. It's probably a good time to do that. She'll be the only one speaking of that tomorrow, and we'll have her talk about Dan and the family, and you'll get your own private link to it. So we'll get that all squared away. So have a good life forward, everybody, and remember how precious life is. And thanks everybody for being here. And we will see you tomorrow at the Breakfast Club. And good night. Good night.
Thanks, Joe.
Peace and blessings, everyone.
Good night. Good night. God bless.